Duke of Sussex has visited Angola in support of landmine clearance.
Prince Harry followed in the footsteps of Princess Diana, who walked through the same minefield back in 1997.
It's all fire!
And in other royal news...
Yeah, today marks Queen Camilla's birthday as Her Majesty turns 78.
Yeah, a new photograph of the Queen at her private Wiltshire home has been released, taken by Chris Jackson to mark the occasion. And we're joined now by the royal correspondent, Richard Palmer. Richard, good morning to you. Let's start off with Prince Harry, if we may. Of course, following in his mother's footsteps, Prince Harry, of course, over the last few years has had a lot of criticism for various things he has told the press. But this is almost like having the old Harry back, isn't it? Doing charity work as patron of the Halo Trust, following in his mother's footsteps.
It is. And, you know, one thing I was really interested in, Cameron, was that the British Embassy held a reception for him. And I don't recall that happening on his previous royal visits since he's quit official royal duties. And I couldn't really get to the bottom of it last night, but I wonder whether that shows there's a slight thawing between the British state and the Duke of Sussex. And I guess it could be the fact that he's there representing a British charity that has been doing important work in partnership with the Angolan government. But still interesting, I thought. And you're right, that's what I thought. This was very much like an old-fashioned royal visit by Harry, with one key exception, of course. The royal press pack weren't invited. There is a new spirit of engagement in his camp now. I mean, he's got a new PR team and they're trying to engage with parts of the media that they really haven't wanted to speak to, or he hasn't wanted to speak to for a long time. But clearly it's not quite extending to inviting us all out there to cover him.
Maybe one day, Richard, maybe one day. And I think it is very interesting, actually, the point you made, because that also jumped out at me, the fact that Prince Harry had been invited to the British Embassy in Angola to speak to business leaders. It's almost like an old-fashioned royal tour. But the question I also couldn't get to the bottom of, and I think this is the key point, Dawn, is that who sanctioned it? Was it the ambassador of Angola who invited Prince Harry? Was the Foreign Office involved, and by extension the British government, and by extension, perhaps, His Majesty the King?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think there's some really interesting things happening now behind the scenes. Early days still yet, but it does seem as if there is a willingness for both officers to start speaking again, and maybe there's a proper family reconciliation on the way.
Richard, I mean, obviously, I expect, like Cameron was saying, I think there is going to be a reconciliation between Harry and the King, because obviously the King has been very poorly, so it would make sense for that to happen. But the fly in this ointment, and the one that is not involved in that meeting at the weekend, is his brother William.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I think it looks much more difficult there. I think the rift is much deeper. But even there, I've spoken to friends of William in the past where I remember one saying to me, time's a great healer. Who knows? I think it's going to be a lot easier for the King to see him than for William to see him. And there are still many obstacles. He's still very concerned about the security situation, so he doesn't want to bring his family over. My personal view is that I think there might be a way to facilitate maybe a visit to Balmoral for the Sussex family, where they're behind a police cordon. There must be some compromise that they can come to, but this summer might be too early for that.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private internet access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private internet access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
And of course, you mentioned that his staff appear to be having a change of tact in terms of engagement with the media and, I would argue, by extension, the British people, allowing people a bit more access, more information and all the rest of it. But do you notice also a change in tact from Harry himself? He appears to be focusing perhaps more on philanthropy, his charity work, rather than, doing an interview like he did a couple of months ago with the BBC about his security situation, and again opening up the idea of more royal secrets. Do you think there is a change of tact from Prince Harry here?
Yeah, it looks that way. As you were saying, really, it's back to the old Harry. And that can only be a good thing, I think, for him, because I think he does need to get the British people back on side, and he's got a lot of work to do on that front. So it'll be interesting to see if there are more of these trips coming up in the near future.
Richard, Richard, this is obviously not a royal tour. This is Harry acting independently, although, as you both pointed out, we don't know how it's happened and who invited who. But it is notable that Meghan isn't with him. Recently, they have been joined at the hip. Meghan, as we know, is a very divisive character. How much of a problem do you think Meghan could be in a warming or a thawing of the relationship between the King and Harry?
I think there are certainly people in the family who, still have a problem with trust, and I think Meghan coming into the family was the catalyst for a huge number of problems between them all. And yes, I think she's doesn't seem to want to come over to the UK. The problem for the King is that he's not seeing his grandchildren. That must be so heartbreaking for him. I think his mother was very good at keeping Fergie on board, for example. And, I think the King will have to try to get Meghan back on board so that they can operate as a family. But I agree, a bigger problem than Harry, I think, on that front.
Yes, of course, Meghan is focusing very much on her as ever business in the United States. But of course, it's also today Queen Camilla's 78th birthday, Richard, and we've got this lovely portrait of her taken in Wiltshire. Do we know anything about what she's going to be up to today?
I think spending it privately, if I remember rightly. I was going to say about Queen Camilla, going back to Harry, it's always very evocative when he retraces Diana's footsteps. And it's clear from certainly social media, I think, that there's still a lot of feeling about Diana. There's still a lot of support for the memory of Diana there. And so I think that's still... Queen Camilla, I would say, is perhaps the most popular member of the royal family with the British press pack. She's been on a charm offensive for years, and she's.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I like her enormously, but the opinion polls suggest that she's still. she's more popular than Harry and Meghan and Prince Andrew, but not many other members of the royal family. Yes, still popular than most politicians, but people are still warming to her, I think, and Diana's memory still lives long for many people, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that just briefly, Richard. Do you think she will ever escape the shadow of Diana?
I don't think completely, no. I think I think many people in this country have come to accept her and accept the fact that he's a better king and was a better Prince of Wales because she was there to support him. And I think people get that, but I was speaking to a group of people yesterday, and there were still people talking about the conspiracy theories about what happened to her, and I think I think it's going to be very difficult for her to completely shed that controversy.
Okay, royal correspondent Richard Palmer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I mean, it is interesting, the Camilla point. I think if you look at the opinion polls, younger people who perhaps didn't have a conscious memory of Princess Diana when she was alive have a more favourable opinion of Queen Camilla because they don't really know who Diana was, essentially, and the whole controversy around that marriage breakdown. But I do get Richard's point, though. When I'm on an engagement, because I'm usually a royal correspondent, Dawn, with Queen Camilla, she always smiles and waves and says hello. She acknowledges your presence.
I was very lucky enough to have met Diana, interviewed her a couple of times when the boys were very, very little. And obviously it was horrible covering all that stuff that happened at the time, but I actually think Camilla's doing an amazing job. At the very least, she's doing an amazing job of supporting the man she loves. Can't really ask much more than that, especially considering what he's going through at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. She is certainly his rock.